My name is Amyn and I'm an alcoholic. And I want to hurry up and tell a bunch of lies before my sponsor gets here, because I just found out he's outside using the bathroom, so here goes. First of all, I want to thank Greg W. for inviting me to speak tonight. I personally consider it an honor and a privilege to, speak anywhere or participate anywhere in Alcoholics Anonymous, because Alcoholics Anonymous was that life raft that saved this old kid from, drowning when I was out there living the life that an alcoholic lives. And, I'm grateful that Alcoholics Anonymous was there when I finally was beat down enough that I was able to, hear the message and matter of factly want the message that Alcoholics Anonymous was sharing. Let me tell you my sobriety date, because I do have one. My sobriety date is January the 25th, 2003. I'm grateful that since I've come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I haven't changed my sobriety date. I feel I'm one of the fortunate ones, because I have a great sponsor. I have a great home group, and those two things, along with the God of my understanding, who has on a daily basis lifted that obsession and compulsion to drink from me. I haven't had to experience the insanity of the first drink since that January 25th, when I woke up one day. I had a bottle of Wild Irish Rose, and I tried to drink it, and I just couldn't get that sense of ease and comfort anymore. And then I realized that the deal was done, and I was trying to look for something different. Didn't know what to do, so I wound up going to a treatment facility. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you in a general way what I used to be like, what happened, and what I'm like now. Now, what I used to be like was the guy who just couldn't do anything that other people did without feeling self-conscious about it. I was always up inside my own head wondering what you were thinking about me all the time. And when I finally discovered alcohol at the age of 14, I finally discovered something that could give me what I needed to help me relate in a world where I felt so uncomfortable. Once I got alcohol in me, I could dance, I could talk to the women. I was a Casanova when I drank. And all the things that I wanted to do, I was able to do. But the thing about that was I drank alcoholically from, 14 years on until I had to stop drinking at the age of 47. My family background, I don't think is unlike anybody else's. My grandfather died from alcoholism at the age of 54. I'm 50, I'll be 57 tomorrow. That's my belly button birthday. I couldn't imagine, what it's like to go through dying from alcoholism when you're 54 years old. When he died, his death certificate, and I learned this through conversations with my grandmother. She's still living. She's 94 years old today. He died from wet brain, cirrhosis of the liver, gout, and a number of other ailments as a result of the way he drank. My mother was a problem drinker. I look back on times where, me and my siblings bounced between my grandmother's home and my mother's home, because my mother had problems with drinking in her life. And when she wasn't able to care for me and my siblings, my grandmother stepped in to take us into her home. I'm the oldest of 6. Every single one of us, from me to my youngest sister, suffer from this malady. Me and my oldest sister are the only 2 out of the 6 that's in recovery. If she stays sober till later on in this year, September, I think, she'll have 8 years of sobriety. So, my whole family life My whole life has revolved around either alcohol directly or indirectly with family members. So I started talking about how I drank alcoholically from the first time I had an opportunity to drink at 14 years old. I got drunk, I suffered no consequences, and I continued drinking regularly to the point that by the time I was in high school, I was a daily drinker. I lost all interest in school, sports, women. All I want to do is party. This was in the 70s, early 70s. And by the time I got to high school, I was well on my way to crossing that line that we talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous. I believe it was in the 11th grade that they called me into the dean's office one day and said, "We no longer want you here at this school because you missed too many days of school. So we suggest you go to night school." That was a suggestion that I didn't take because I thought to myself, if I'm not going to day school, why do you think I'm going to go to night school? They wanted me to get my GED. I didn't get my GED. And what eventually happened was I caused so much destruction in the home that I came home one day and my mother had moved without telling me where she moved to. I was the kind of teenager that when my mother told me to get up and go to school, I would get up, I would get dressed, I would go somewhere where I could keep an eye on when she left, a couple houses away, somebody's backyard. And when she left, I would break back into the house and I would steal her money. I was good at finding things. And I would take the hard-earned money that she was trying to save to provide for 6 children as a single parent, and I would get my beer and my wine. So one day she just said, "I'm tired of this." She was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So she moved out. And I stayed in the home until the utilities were turned off, and it was up in New York, and it got cold in the wintertime. So when the utilities were turned off and it was too cold for me to live there anymore, I did what I normally do. I moved down to North Carolina to stay with my grandmother and take advantage of her. But that was hard to do because she was one of those people who she didn't put up with a lot of mess. So when I told her I wanted to come down, she said, "Yeah, you could come down here, but you got to do something before, to be down here living with me." So I decided to get back into high school. And fortunately, I had enough credits that I was able to enroll in Hoke High in Rayford and finish up and get my high school diploma. Let me tell you how bad it was for me and how far alcohol had progressed and taken me away from what a normal pattern at that time should be. Most kids graduate from high school at 18 years, 17, maybe 19 would be pushing it. I graduated from high school at 21 years old. That maybe is an indication of how my life was unmanageable. And if it wasn't for the force of my grandmother's personality, I wouldn't have graduated from high school. I would have came down and continued to do the same thing, just running wild. So I graduated from high school, but I still continued to drink. It was just fortunate that I didn't really know anybody in Rayford, so I didn't get in that much trouble. She said, "Well, now you graduated from high school, you need to get a job. You need to bring some money into the house." So I did get a job. I don't know how it happened. I guess, you fill out an application and people review it and say, "Okay, we want to give this guy a chance." So I was hired at the House of Rayford in the turkey plant. And here I am coming from New York, never worked a day in my life, didn't know anything about the work ethic, but you good people in North Carolina showed me the work ethic. And there's some people that worked in the turkey plant. It was like they were whistling while they were working. And I was like, whoa, these people are crazy. I couldn't hang. 2 weeks, I was done. 2 weeks. I was done. I was so broke down from that manual labor. I never want to, well, I still ate turkey, but I never want to see the inside of any kind of a factory again, and I never did. I went back to school, and Lewisburg College, and that's in Franklin County, and I was serious about getting an education, but those fellas in Franklin County introduced me to white lightning. And the idea of the moonshine, the idea of education went out the window. And I drank my way out of Lewisburg College in 2 semesters. And then I got the bright idea to join the military. So I'm scheming all along the way. And the highlights of my military career were this. I had 3 captain's masts. In the Army, they call them Article 15. I joined the Navy. I don't know why I joined the Navy, because I couldn't swim. I'm still trying to figure that out today. And I have done a 4th and a 5th step, so I just want to let you know that. But I joined the Navy, and the 3 highlights of my career were those 3 captain's masts, because I couldn't stop drinking, and I couldn't stop stealing. I was a corpsman. And they gave me the keys to the pharmacy when I had duty. And you can imagine what I did. I wasn't trying to protect the pharmacy. I was trying to loot the pharmacy. And they didn't like that. So, I had to appear before the captain and try to explain, what was my reason behind that. And every time I had to appear before the captain, somebody would put their rank and would put their reputation on the line, a senior enlisted or an officer, and say this guy is worth saving. And I feel today, and I believe today, that was the hand of God that was helping to guide me to Alcoholics Anonymous. Because he always put people at pivotal points in my life to help guide me where I needed to be to continue to find him. And so I was, because of these people, not because of me, because I tried to sabotage my career on numerous occasions. I managed to have a 14-year military career, and I got out. I tried to do 20, but I got out on a disability because I was injured during the first Gulf War, and I got out as with a service-connected disability. And so when I got out in '92. My thinking said, now I'm in charge of myself. I can do what I want to do. No more the military telling me where to be, when to be there, and how to be there. And that was in 1992. So I was in charge of myself, and by 2001, I was homeless and on the streets of Philadelphia. And that lasted for about a year. And, and I still didn't think alcohol was a problem. I thought other people were the problem, other things were the problem. There was a guy that I remember he found me on the street, and he let me have a room in his home. And his name was Joseph Sharon. We call him JoJo. And today I know that he was in the fellowship because he tried to take me, well, he did take me to one meeting. And I don't know what kind of meeting it was. I don't know if it was a AA meeting, if it was an NA meeting, if it was a Christian-based 12-step program. All I know is that we were reading from a book, and there was a group of men sitting around, and I think the book was a step book or a tradition book. I vaguely remember that because I was still under the influence. So it didn't stick. That was the only meeting I went to in those years, and during the meeting, I couldn't wait to get out of that meeting because I had things to do. I had business to take care of. And I didn't go to another meeting. That was in 2000. And I didn't go to another meeting for 2 years. Now, while I was homeless and on the street, another thing happened that helped guide me. I was in a shelter for veterans in Philadelphia. And I took a urinalysis. It was supposed to be a sober house. And my urinalysis came up hot. So the counselor sat down with me and said, we could send you to treatment at the VA right now, and we could get you some help. And I said, no, I got things to do. I got business to take care of. And the counselor said, well, if you don't take care of things now, you're going to have to face it later on. You'll be back. And he was right, because 2 years later, I was sitting on the side in 2003, January the 2nd. I was coming back from New York after spending New Year's Eve partying and all day and all night, and hadn't been asleep for about 48 hours, driving down the road, a total wreck, got to Greenbelt, Maryland, and pulled over to the side just to sort of like try to get it together for a minute. And the police pulled up and asked me if I need any help, and he seen the kind of condition I was in. He put the handcuffs on me, and I never want to forget that officer because he saved my life. I wouldn't have stopped. So he stopped me, and I'm grateful that he did. So that's what happened. I had to be stopped because I've always been driving on the road in any kind of state I wanted to be in, and no telling what could have happened. But what did happen was that Officer Murphy stopped me. And, I came to the realization that I didn't want my life to continue like that, so I needed to do something different. And so when I got back to Fayetteville, I went to the VA and I got into the CART program. That was the VA's treatment program. And they sent me to a halfway house in Fayetteville. And in that halfway house, we were required to go to meetings. It was a structured home. And we were required to get a sponsor. Now, I didn't know anything. If I can remember correctly, I didn't get into that halfway house. I didn't get into treatment to get sober. I got into treatment because I didn't want to go to prison, because what I was facing was some significant prison time. And so fear forced me to go to treatment, and I was still scheming. I thought treatment, getting into treatment, when I had to appear before U.S. District Judge, and I never want to forget his name, DeGirolamo in Greenbelt, Maryland, I thought that would look good, and that maybe I would get some leniency. And so I got into treatment, I got into the halfway house, and didn't know how to get a sponsor. They said, you got to get a sponsor in 30 days. And I was like, sponsor? What do you mean, sponsor? And I was going to meetings, and people were talking about sponsorship. And, we were supposed to get a sponsor in 30 days. And like I said, it took me till I was 21 to graduate from high school. It took me till about 40 days to get a sponsor. See, I'm a slow learner, but I get there. And it wasn't even my idea for this sponsor. The house manager, he did me a great service by suggesting this man. He said that'll make a good sponsor for you, and I still got the same sponsor today. He still continues to hold on to me, and I'm grateful for that. So I asked him to be my sponsor, and he agreed. Not initially. He said, look around. If you see somebody you might like better, then, it's no problem if you want to choose him. But if you still want me to be your sponsor, then we can sit down and talk about it. And, that's like one of the things that I'm most grateful for, that I landed in the lap of this sponsor, because he's one of those sponsors who firmly believes in the principles of AA. He firmly believes in the fellowship of AA, and all the sponsees that he has, we like to talk about him as a soldier for Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's a lot of soldiers in Alcoholics Anonymous, because they carry the message. They carry the message, and they carry the message far and wide. And he introduced me to a lot of people like that. He's my service sponsor. He sponsored me in the service. He took me through the steps. He got me active in Alcoholics Anonymous. He didn't just let me sit around and hope that sobriety would fall into my lap. I don't believe it works like that. I believe that I have to do something. And he showed me by his example what I had to do. And along with that, I was in this halfway house, and they gave me some stuff to do, like I was house manager, I was assistant house manager, I was cook, I drove people to meetings back and forth. And, that helped me to understand the concept of service to other, suffering alcoholics, because in this house was a bunch of men, and we were all in the same boat, just trying to figure this thing out and trying to get sober. And even though I was a house manager, I was expected to manage the home, I looked at it as an opportunity to serve, because that's what Alcoholics Anonymous talks about, being of service to your fellow man. And not only Alcoholics Anonymous, but, I believe all religions talk about being of service to your fellow man. And so that's one of the things that I learned while I was there. And it took me 2 years to get a solid foundation of sobriety. So, I was at that halfway house for 2 years trying to work on myself. My sponsor took me through the steps in those 2 years. And those steps have really transformed me from the inside out. Because I was always the guy who tried to get you before you got me. I didn't want you to know that I was scared of you, so I tried to get you before you got me. And, being taken through the steps and being around people that were trying to practice some spiritual principles in their life helped change my way of thinking and my actions. And in addition to that, you all talked about this higher power. You all talked about this God of my understanding. Now, in my family, my grandmother is deeply religious. Now, she's 94 years old today. I mean, she's as feisty as ever. She was hard drinking, heavy smoking. She's old school. She used to smoke unfiltered Camel cigarettes back in her day. And she used to drink rye whiskey straight. And she turned her will and her life over to the care of God in the church when she was 30 years old. She's 94 today. And she hasn't had a drink or a cigarette since that time. And she understands my mission in life today, because that's been her mission for over 60 years. And when I talk about this length of sobriety that I have, it don't mean a thing to her. Because she's been close to God for longer than I've been alive. So I'm glad to have somebody like that in my life, because she understands this fellowship. She understands how to develop a relationship with a higher power and how to maintain that relationship. And I love her to death. I'm an aid and a comfort for her today, when in the past, I was a guy who was trying to destroy everything that she was trying to build. So she loves seeing me coming now. And she has done some things for me that I couldn't do for myself, to help me get here behind this podium today. Because she could have turned her back on me a long, long time ago, but she didn't. And I'm grateful for that. So, here I am. I have a sponsor. My sponsor took me through the steps, and I'm trying to find my way in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know when I got on fire for Alcoholics Anonymous, but there came a point that I got so on fire for Alcoholics Anonymous that I wanted to do everything at one time. I wanted to be in the service. I wanted to do all the great things in Alcoholics Anonymous that it talks about, helping people, doing service work. I was doing so many things at one time that my sponsor told me to slow down. And I said, I can't slow down. I just got to, I just got to do it, because Alcoholics Anonymous had given me so much. And this was only when I had maybe a year or two. And I didn't foresee what the future held for me. If I had seen what the future held for me, I would have slowed down. Because let me tell you what the future has brought. So I'm a few years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I go back to school, and I try to apply some principles in my life that y'all taught me about. I got my bachelor's degree in 2 years, where before it took me till I was 21 to graduate from high school. I got my master's in 2 years after that. Shortly after I got my master's, one of my professors said, "You ever thought about teaching?" And I said, "No, I haven't really thought about it." And so she said, "Well, why don't you fill out an application and we'll go from there." So I filled out an application, and I got hired to teach at a university. So I've been teaching at a university for about 5 years now. After I got the job at the university, I got into a doctorate program. So I'm in the midst of, well, actually, I'm more toward the end than the midst. I'm at the end of a PhD program in educational leadership. In 2008, I met a woman. Now, I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous since 2003. And y'all told me, well, this is what I heard. Y'all may not have said this, but I heard, don't get into any emotional entanglements early in sobriety. And I had so many examples of what could go wrong. See, I'm the kind of person that focus on the negative sometimes. And I've seen all of these people that came into AA with me, well, not all people, but some people that I focused on. And I seen that if they put a relationship first before they started to work on themselves, then in most cases, not all cases, most cases, they would lose their sobriety. They would relapse. And I didn't want that to happen to me. So I stayed out of any emotional entanglements for 5 years. I focused on me getting better because I was an emotional and a mental wreck. I started drinking age 14. I didn't progress emotionally or spiritually since the age of 14. Any relationship that I had, I destroyed because I didn't know how to consider the other person's feelings and the other person's needs. And when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, you told me that was important. That's how you develop relationships with people. And so I worked on developing relationships by considering other people's needs, by sacrificing my own. Boy, that was hard, but it's doable because y'all demonstrated it was doable. And as a result of keeping that attitude and taking those actions, I was introduced to a wonderful woman in 2008. And we didn't hit it off the bat right away. If my sponsor was here, I would have told a lie and said we hit it off right off the bat. But we didn't. I would call her every day, and she said, "You better stop calling me every day. You don't have to call me every day." And I said, "Okay, no problem." I consider her feeling. I text her every day. and as a result, we started to, become friendlier and friendlier. And, there was some bumpy parts along the way. But eventually, we got married. And to me, it's still amazing because I've never been married. I got married at 56 years old. 56 years old. So it is possible to change. It's possible because these principles make that possible. I was the kind of guy that didn't want anybody interfering in what I wanted to do in my life. And as a result, my life was a wreck. Now I'm accountable to people. I have a sponsor that I'm accountable to. I have sponsees that I'm accountable to. I have an employer that I'm accountable to. I'm accountable to my grandmother. I'm accountable to my siblings. I'm accountable to my wife. I'm accountable to my stepchildren and my children that I have now. I'm more accountable than I've ever been before. I've also been able to purchase a home as a result of, just demonstrating some principles in this program and taking some actions. All of these things, when my sponsor told me to slow down, I couldn't foresee. I was just on fire for AA. AA has given me much more than I could have ever imagined. I better keep my eye on the clock. I get paid to talk, so I might talk myself out of time. AA has given me a lot more than I've ever imagined. I never imagined, all I imagined was getting out of going to prison. I did get out of going to prison. I did federal probation for a year. I did that successfully, so I didn't have to go to prison. If I would have messed up, the U.S. Marshals would have came to got me. I didn't want the U.S. Marshals after that. Tommy Lee Jones is a tough cat. I don't want him after me. So I kept my nose clean for a year, and then I got off probation. And people have always seen something in me, and they gave me a break. The house manager at the halfway house gave me a break to go back to face those charges in Maryland without an escort. He let me drive up there on a Thursday. That was when my court hearing was on a Friday. He let me drive up on a Thursday and stay overnight, attend the court hearing, and take the whole weekend. I mean, that trust was there. And I got that from people in Alcoholics Anonymous, learning to trust. Because I didn't have that level of trust when I first came here. And I learned to build that trust as a result of people demonstrating trust in me when I didn't deserve it. So I've learned to trust as well. That's what helps me in these relationships I'm trying to develop. So I've acquired all these things. Now the key thing is, how do I maintain it? It was easy for me to get stuff, and I see it's always easy for us to get stuff. But how do I keep it? And my sponsor always likes to say this: I can only keep what I have by giving it away. And as long as I continue to do stuff like this and try to, stay active in service, I can maintain what I have. How do I maintain my relationship with the God of my understanding? I formally get on my knees. That's what I do. Because I feel that that's an act of humility and that's an act of submission. And if I don't submit to somebody greater than me, I'm going to think I'm the big chief around here. And I'm not the big chief. I learned that. Being the big chief got me, in a lot of hot water. And I don't want to go back to that anymore. I like sleeping in a nice warm bed with a roof over my head now. I don't like sleeping on the streets anymore. And that's what'll become of me if I start thinking that I'm the big chief. Even when I got little grandkids now, right? And sometimes I don't want to do what they ask me to do. Sometimes I don't want to do what my wife asked me to do. Sometimes I don't want to do what my grandmother or my employer want me to do. But if I don't do it, then and it's a reasonable request, then I'm thinking I'm the big chief. And y'all taught me how to be humble, and be humble in the sense that if somebody asks me to do something that's reasonable, then try to do it. Because they wouldn't ask me to do it if they didn't think it was important. So I try to look at how reasonable it is to do for that person, and not think about myself all the time, because that's what got me in trouble. I keep what I have by sticking around you. One of the great lessons that my sponsor taught me was that, I've been in AA for 10 years now. But that don't mean a darn thing. What it means is how I treat you today and how important I think you are to me today. Because without you, there is no me. I can't stay sober without the people in Alcoholics Anonymous to share experience, strength, and hope, and show me how they stay sober. Show me the lessons that I need to learn to stay sober. I got 3 degrees, but that won't help me stay sober. The only thing that's helped me stay sober is when I landed in Alcoholics Anonymous with you. That's what helped me stay sober, because you helped me remember that I'm an alcoholic. You helped me remember that without God, I can't stay sober. And God is important to me today. I never thought that, I'd be one of those people talking about God. I used to be the kind of guy, when people talked about God, when I was in church as a young man, people talked about how good God was, and people talked about how God had performed miracles in their life. I was real skeptical about that. I didn't see, what kind of miracle were they talking about? I was expecting the kind of miracle where the sky opens up and angels come down and people floating all around and things like that. But they weren't talking, at least today, I don't think they were talking about miracles like that. They were talking about simple miracles from their experience. And the simple miracle from my experience is that I no longer have the obsession and the compulsion to drink. That's a miracle. I don't get up anymore with the thought that I have to start my day with a drink. I was at a meeting the other night, and I was sharing that since I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have not had a bad day. I have never had a bad day. When I pick up that first drink and drink it, that's going to be a bad day for me, because I'm an alcoholic. Y'all told me I can endure anything as long as I have God and as long as I have you. I can endure anything. But if I pick up that first drink, that's all she wrote, because no telling what will become of me. I was one of those guys headed for the scrap heap of humanity. I was headed there, homeless and on the street. No future that I could foresee. And then when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, things turned around for me. I met great people, and some of them in this room. I met them even before I seen their faces. I heard their voices on tapes. And they shared their experience about how this program had transformed them, and they became useful and productive members of society. And I could remember distinctly riding the meetings with my sponsor. He was playing those tapes, and I was listening to those stories. And it sounded amazing. And now here I am 10 years later, experiencing the same thing they were talking about on those tapes when I was a newcomer. And it's just, just gives me shivers up and down my spine when I think about it. I couldn't foresee what God had in store for me. My plans was just to get out of going to prison. But God has so much more in store for me. I would have sold myself short if I would not have allowed you to guide me in my sobriety. You have been just so wonderful to me, asking me to come do stuff like this. I met Tamai years ago. I was in a halfway house. I think I had about 6 or 8 months, and I met him through my sponsor, and I got the courage to go up and ask him to come talk to the men at the halfway house. And I was reluctant, because I said, nah, he got all this sobriety. He's not going to come talk to us guys. But he came and he shared his experience, strength, and hope. And that demonstrated to me what Alcoholics Anonymous is about. It's about people sacrificing for other people. I don't know if it was a sacrifice for him, but I felt it was. Because the most valuable thing that all of us have that we can never get back is time. And when somebody sacrifices their time, they're sacrificing the most valuable thing that God has allowed them to have on the face of this earth, their time. Thanks for letting me share.